this time, the defense calls J.D. Lorien to the stand. Could you please introduce yourself to the court?
My name is Jennifer Diane Lorien.
What do you do for a living, Ms. Lorien?
I am the owner and chief auditor of Greylord Strategies Incorporated. My company helps local, federal, and state police departments in auditing their investigations, making sure that they're following all the proper protocols.
And what kind of training and experience do you have?
Well, I have my Bachelor's of Science degree from Johns Hopkins University. I have my JD from University of Virginia School of Law, and I have my Master's of Law degree from Harvard Law School.
Do you have any law enforcement experience?
I do. I spent 25 years with the FBI as a senior agent with some of their undercover investigations, bribery, drug trafficking, tax evasion, that sort of thing.
And how are you involved in today's case?
My company was retained to analyze the investigation conducted by Detective Keenan, which led to the arrest of Avery Bancroft and Chase Covington.
Now, did you have sufficient facts and data in conducting your analysis?
I did. I was given all of the information from the Midland State Police Department, as well as the reports by a Dr. Sikorsky.
And are there reliable principles and methods in your field to analyze these things?
Yes, for the undercover investigation, I focused on the Attorney General's guidelines for undercover operations. And for Dr. Sikorsky's analysis, I focused on my time with the FBI, as well as some of the peer-reviewed articles I had on cognitive biases and forensic evidence.
Now, back at the Bureau, were you ever involved in forensic evidence collection?
I was a senior agent back at the Bureau, and I was supervising and making sure that they were collecting the evidence properly. Though I didn't collect any evidence myself, I was always there.
Now, did you apply your principles and methods to the facts and data to come to your conclusions?
Absolutely, as I have been doing for the past 5 years with Greylord.
Well, I'd like to start with undercover investigations. What are some of the things that are important to do when conducting undercover work?
The most essential part of any undercover operation is documentation.
And why is that so important?
Well, undercover operations, unlike investigations in the field, happen behind closed doors. We don't know what's happening in any meeting, so if the investigative officer isn't documenting what's being said or what's being done, there's no way of knowing whether or not there was a crime.
And who was the undercover officer in today's case?
A detective, Mickey Keenan.
Did Detective Keenan document his investigation properly?
Detective Keenan had a few email exchanges with Avery Bancroft, Chase Covington, and Corey Hyde. But other than that, there wasn't real documentation of his investigation.
So what are some of the specific things that he should have documented?
Well, Detective Keenan should have documented any time he came into contact with a suspect. Today's case would be Chase Covington or Avery Bancroft.
And did he do that?
Aside from a few emails, no.
Well, specifically, I'd like to ask about a meeting that occurred on April 13th. Now, did you find any documentation of that meeting?
I didn't find any.
And does that raise any issues?
Yes, April 13th was one of the meetings that a bribe was alleged to take place in. We have no documentation of what was said in that meeting.
I'd also like to talk to you about some of the forensic evidence that's been collected. Now, did Dr. Sikorsky properly apply forensic procedures?
Absolutely. Dr. Sikorsky followed all the proper protocols in getting the evidence and conducting his analysis.
And what about his conclusions?
Dr. Sikorsky's conclusions weren't overstated, but we must remember that science has limitations.
Well, could you tell us about those limits? Like, for instance, what are the limits of fingerprint evidence?
Fingerprint evidence is a key factor in identifying if a person came into contact with an object. However, it's not time sensitive. We don't know when a person came into contact with an object or for how long they came into contact with a specific object.
So where were fingerprints found in Dr. Sikorsky's report?
Dr. Sikorsky analyzed a briefcase and we found fingerprints on the side of the briefcase and the latches and the handle, but he can't tell us when either party opened the briefcase or lifted it up or anything of that nature.
And is there any way to know how long that briefcase was touched?
No, there's no way.
Thank you. No further questions.